Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udiyayet. Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavatir Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Srinvata Swakatha Krishna Punyasravana Kirtanaha Hridyantastoya Bhadrani Vidhanoti Suratsatam. Reading from Canto 3, Chapter 9, Verse 29. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Ma Vedagarbhagastandrim Sarga Udyamamavaha Tanmaya Paditam Yagre Yanmam Prartayate Bhavan. Synonyms. Shri Bhagavan Vacha. The Lord, Personality of Godhead, said, Ma, do not, Veda Garbha, O you who have the depth of all Vedic wisdom. Gaha, Tandrim, become dejected. Sarge, for creation. Udyamam, enterprises. Avaha, you just undertake. Tat, that which you want. Maya, by me. Apaditam, executed. He, certainly. Agre, previously. Yat, which. Mam, from me. Prartayate, begging. Bhavan, you. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhicharana Arvinda Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then said, O Brahma, O depth of Vedic wisdom, be neither depressed nor anxious about the execution of creation. What you are begging from me has already been granted before. Purport. Any person authorized by either the Lord or by his bona fide representative is already blessed, as is the work entrusted to him. Of course, the person entrusted with such a responsibility should always be aware of his incapability and must always look for the mercy of the Lord for the successful execution of his duty. One should not be puffed up because he is entrusted with certain executive work. Fortunate is he who is so entrusted. And if he is always fixed in the sense of being subordinate to the will of Supreme, he is sure to come out successful in the discharge of his work. Arjuna was entrusted with the work of the fighting on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And before he was so entrusted, the Lord had already arranged for his victory. But Arjuna was always conscious of his position as subordinate to the Lord, and thus he accepted him as the supreme guide in his responsibility. Anyone who takes pride in doing responsible work but does not give credit to the Supreme Lord is certainly falsely proud and cannot execute anything nicely. Brahma and persons in the line of his disciplic succession who follow in his footsteps are always successful in discharge of loving transcendental service to the Supreme Lord. Let's offer some prayers and then we can have some discussions. Om Ajnanatimidandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadhati Swapadantikam. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Good morning. I was just saying to Lakshmikant Prabhu that I'm somehow feeling super anxious and super tensed. Something that Lord didn't want Brahma to feel. Be they neither depressed or not anxious, but just trying to speak about it, I'm feeling quite anxious, and it's a genuine prayer from my side to everybody who is here. So, so that I think I can feel normal and maybe speak something useful. So, as I was trying to, also like considering yesterday was Srila Prabhupada's the day of his disappearance. And even yesterday, when Jagadananda Prabhu was speaking, and as I was preparing for today's class, one of the constant thought that I was having was how can I kind of see whatever is happening in the Bhagavatam currently through the lens of Srila Prabhupada's life. And there are some parallels that I could see in both Lord Brahma and Srila Prabhupada, both being the founder acharyas. One who is the founder of obviously Srila Prabhupada, as we know him, he's the founder acharya of ISKCON, and Lord Brahma is the founder acharya of the whole Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. So, I was just trying to see whatever Lord Brahma is going through in his life currently. How do we see parallels to Srila Prabhupada's life? Before we get into the verse, we'll just discuss some of those points, and then we'll see how we can connect the parallels of both Lord Brahma and Srila Prabhupada to what the Lord here is saying, that that be neither depressed nor anxious, and what is being begged is already been granted before. So if we start from the beginning, the Lord Brahma took his birth, did whatever he had to do for finding out his roots, and then once he identified that it's not within his capacity, what he sat down and did tapasya for 100 Lord Brahma's years. So that if it started from the beginning, from a preparation level, Lord Brahma's preparation for the service that he is about to kind of get into was just sitting in that place and performing meditation for 100 of his years. And in similar way, the preparation for Srila Prabhupada, once before he got into the actual service of as he himself wrote in his Pranama Mantra, Paschyata Deshatarine, Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschyata Deshatarine. Before he got into the thick and thin things of actually doing the Paschyata Deshatarine, Srila Prabhupada himself prepared himself by doing various kind of services. If you read Srila Prabhupada's Lilamrita, we understand that he was trying to assist in some of the missions of his own god brothers, and sometimes he was trying to print and distribute books, and sometimes he was in the phases where he was writing Srimad Bhagavatam commentary, Bhagavad Gita commentary. And so his tapasya, in the case of Lord Brahma, his tapasya was just sitting in one place and meditating. In the case of Srila Prabhupada, his tapasya was rendering various kind of services and then him preparing himself. And once that preparation phase was done, the pre-work, what in the case of Lord Brahma, the pre-work happened once it dawned up in him, as we just read in this chapter itself, that after Lord Brahma performed the tapasya for 100 of his years, the Lord revealed himself from his heart. And in the case of Srila Prabhupada, as Jagadananda Prabhu was also saying yesterday, and also something that His Holiness Lompad Maharaj said, was once Srila Prabhupada wrote the Bhagavatam commentary, and then he kind of felt that he's ready for venturing out. And then it so happened that by the will of Supreme Lord, everything kind of was arranged. And he's in both of their preparations, they were prepared now, they felt that they are well prepared. Before actually getting into the step of actually performing the task of performing their service, Lord Brahma, as we just saw before verse, couple of verses before that, was Brahma, once he had the darshan of Lord, he glorified the Supreme Personality of Godhead, prayed for his shelter and empowerment from the Lord. And so Srila Prabhupada, as he got onto the Jaladuta, the first thing that Srila Prabhupada wrote was what we famously got to know as Markina Bhagavata Dharma, in that if you get into the nitty-gritties of the prayers that Lord Brahma did, and what Srila Prabhupada wrote in that Markina Bhagavata Dharma, we'll also kind of see a lot of parallels with respect to what Lord Brahma is praying and with respect to what Srila Prabhupada is praying, has prayed and is praying. But because of the lack of time, we'll not get into the specifics of all of that. But if you just take one line, the famous line from Srila Prabhupada's prayer is Nachao Nachao se Prabhu, Nachao se Mate, where Srila Prabhupada is saying that, oh my Supreme Lord, please let me dance as you wish to dance, as you wish for me to dance. And similarly, Lord Brahma, as we have seen in the previous verses, Lord Brahma is saying that may you empower me to perform this task of creation, and may I always perform this task of creation in the mode of service. So their pre-work, once they did the preparation of doing the tapasya, and then their pre-work was glorifying the Supreme Lord for his magnanimity of placing them in that position of rendering that direct service for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Along with that glorification was also kind of explaining and exploring their kind of in a way inability of performing their service and how much they are dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and him to actually kind of do that service through them. And once the pre-work was done, and whatever verses that the Lord himself is speaking now, that everything will be taken care, you don't have to be anxious or depressed, you can get into the thick and thin things of actually performing this service. In the case of Srila Prabhupada, once he wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam Dharma, and in this tumultuous kind of travel that he was having in the ship, as we understand that in the case of Lord Brahma, the Supreme Lord directly spoke to him. In the case of Srila Prabhupada, the Supreme Lord kind of came to his dream and said that he's kind of now taking over the control of everything that needs to happen. And that was kind of indication for them that yes, Lord is now as kind of listen to my prayers and is responding and saying that you get on to doing what you can, and then I'll take care of the rest of the things. And once they actually started getting into doing the things as needed to be done for the actual performing of that service of creation, in the case of both Lord Brahma and in the case of Srila Prabhupada, it was a task of creating. In the case of Lord Brahma, it was the task of creating the whole cosmic manifestation, the secondary manifestation. In the case of Srila Prabhupada, kind of creating the whole cosmic manifestation where the entire civilization can get into the place where they can perform their devotional service to the Supreme Lord. They did not leave anything to chance. They did not think that, oh yeah, Lord kind of agreed to assist. I'll just sit here and kind of, to use the modern word of chilling. So they were not chilling. They were not leaving any stone unturned. They were trying to do everything that needs to be done. But as we see, the initial phase of both what Lord Brahma was trying to do and what Srila Prabhupada was trying to do, if you just look at it from an external standpoint, it might appear like a failure. Like if we take, I'll just take a couple of examples from both Lord Brahma's scenario and Srila Prabhupada's scenario. Was Lord Brahma first of all created Kumaras, and as we understand, Kumaras are these great devotees. But the purpose that Lord Brahma created the Chatur Kumaras was so that they can continue to create this progeny. But they disobeyed them. They said, "My dear father, thank you for giving us this life, but we see that our life is surrendering to Vasudeva. We cannot perform the service that you are performing." The first step itself was not something that Lord Brahma wanted to do. It was a peaceful, they are these wonderful people, everything that you want from a son, except for not kind of continuing on the legacy that Lord Brahma actually wanted, kind of creating this huge thing. And if you see that also in the case of Srila Prabhupada, the first place that he went was Pennsylvania, Butler, Pennsylvania. It was this wonderful, peaceful place like Kumaras. Everything was well and good. There was no disrespect from anybody. It was not that Kumaras were being disrespectful and kind of proud that this is just something that's kind of not needed. It's not that their heart was not into it. So was in the case of Butler, Pennsylvania, was a wonderful, peaceful place. But it was the outcome in both the case of Kumaras and in the case of Butler, Pennsylvania, was not something that they were actually trying to do that. In the case of Kumaras, in the case of Lord Brahma, he wanted them to have this progeny. which they were kind of not letting it happen. And in the case of Butler, Pennsylvania, also Srila Prabhupada stayed there for a month, and then he realized that this is not the place that can help me create the wonderful place that I'm trying to create. And then they moved from that place of Butler, Pennsylvania, and the Kumaras. And what Lord Brahma created was this place of is the personality of kind of ignorance and passion, which is Lord Rudra. And because he came out of this suppressed anger, and then Rudra was created. And as we later, I think it comes in the later chapters, we see that we understand that Lord Rudra, and then there were 12 Rudras, and then each of the Rudra had a Rudrani. And then Lord Brahma asked them to kind of continue the creation. And then eventually he had to go and say that, please stop it. The creation that the next generations that you are creating are causing destruction, not just causing the destruction of everything, but they are also kind of trying to hurt me also. And we also see that in the case of Srila Prabhupada, from Butler, Pennsylvania, which was a peaceful place, Srila Prabhupada moved into into the place of ignorance, which is the New York, and into the New York also into the place of, for lack of better term, like kind of where it was a kind of condensed mode of ignorance into that the whole Bowery place. It was not great for Srila Prabhupada, but there was some kind of creation that was happening. Srila Prabhupada was kind of meeting some people. It was not exactly like what it was in the Butler, Pennsylvania, where there was nothing happening, but there was something happening. But then there were these crazy episodes of causing destruction. Srila Prabhupada lost the Bhagavad Gita commentary that he wrote in India. He lost the typewriter, and also it was kind of, and then he had this crazy episode with one of his roommate, and then Srila Prabhupada kind of just had to come out. And then so was Lord Brahma. It kind of, he had to abruptly stop whatever Lord Rudra was doing. And in the case of Srila Prabhupada also, there was an abrupt stop in his scales also of just coming back onto the road. And once that happened, then Lord Brahma created other sages, and then they were he created he's created Kardama Muni and so on and so forth, many sages. And then as Bhagavatam explains, they were trying to create, but he was not satisfied to the degree that it needs to happen. Like and in the case of Srila Prabhupada also, he met Dr. Mishra, where there were some people who were trying to come to him, and then there were maybe some people who were getting inspired by what Srila Prabhupada was doing, and then Srila Prabhupada was corresponding with an Indian businessman to kind of convince him to send him some Lakshmi Ved so that he can buy one property in New York, thereby kind of make it as a temple. But it was not, the outcome again was not what Srila Prabhupada, the magnanimity was not to the degree that Srila Prabhupada wanted. So was in the case of Lord Brahma, the magnanimity of the creation that needs to happen was not to the degree that Lord Brahma wanted from the sages. And now, as we come to the later stages of the success story, is Bhagavatam explains that Lord Brahma was contemplating, and apparently it appears that without any physical effort of his, two personalities just came out of his body. And the two personalities are Swayambhuva Manu and Shatarupa. And he was just contemplating on how best he can perform the devotional service and all of that. And then it so happened. I'll just a minute. So in the case of Srila Prabhupada also, Srila Prabhupada was always in this mood of contemplation on how best he can perform the devotional service, and then how you can create this whole movement. And as in his contemplation, it might appear was, if you just look at it from an historical standpoint, that Prabhupada didn't go and venture out and looking out for this the place which we famously got to know as the 26nd Avenue. He didn't. There was no physical effort from Srila Prabhupada's side for creating the 26nd Avenue as a place. Some of his students kind of found it. They gathered the amount that needs to be paid as rent and all of that, and then rest, as they say in the case of both Lord Brahma, and in the case of Srila Prabhupada, as they say, his history. And once Swayambhu Manu and then Shatarupa kind of came into place into that unison, everything fell into place, and then there was this huge creation that happened. So was in the case of Srila Prabhupada also. Once Srila Prabhupada moved into 26 second and new, then there was this regular places, regular Bhagavad Gita classes that he was doing in the evening, and then the initial 7 disciples, and then the rest, as we know, is history. And in both the cases, which is something that is kind of a word that Nityananda Pran Prabhu always explains in the case of Ramayana. Every time that something at turn of event has to happen in the Ramayana, there is a word that Valmiki uses, which is called as Yadrichaya. And Srila Prabhupada usually, it also comes in many places in Bhagavatam also. Srila Prabhupada translates Yadrichaya in many places as by his own sweet will. By the own sweet will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the turns kind of take shape. So was in the case of Lord Brahma and Srila Prabhupada also. If you see that everything was happening by Yadrichaya, by the own sweet will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There were events taking place. There was apparent failure, and then there was this success. And as we understand, what is the result of both Lord Brahma and both Srila Prabhupada is as a group of devotees sitting here in wherever position that we are, and reading Srimad Bhagavatam, which and reading the verses. Just a minute. I'm sorry. Is as sitting here and then reading Srimad Bhagavatam and discussing about the services that both Lord Brahma has performed and both Srila Prabhupada has performed. And it, in a way, we are directly impacted and helped by both the services that both Lord Brahma has performed and both the Srila Prabhupada has performed. And if we now try to get back into the verse, as what Lord Vishnu is saying to Lord Brahma, is saying that, "O depth of Vedic wisdom, be neither depressed nor anxious." And if you actually look in carefully again, try to now as we have completed, I think I'll try to take extra 5 or 10 minutes if it's okay, just to kind of finish up trying to correlate what the verse is saying to the just the discussion that we had. Is as in the case of both Lord Brahma and Srila Prabhupada, as Lord himself is saying that they were neither depressed nor anxious. And if you look into the exact definition of what depressed and anxious is, the depressed actually comes from the root term of pressed down, which is which basically means that whenever we are depressed, we feel that the task is too big and we are too tiny, and just the weight of the service that needs to be performed is so huge for us that we can kind of never see the next. Sometimes it's said that there is no light at the end of the tunnel. That's what we sometimes might feel, that, oh, I'm too tiny, and then there's no way that we can perform that devotional service. So was in the case of Srila Prabhupada and Lord Brahma, that the service that they were trying to venturing out was so big, but neither of them were. But they kind of never felt depressed, or they never felt kind of pressed down by the magnanimity of the service that they were doing. And what do we mean by being anxious? Is anxious comes from the root word of to choke, which basically means that once we kind of feel that the service is quite big and all of that, and we still kind of take it up. Sometimes we see that the child might try to eat something which is quite big, and it just chokes into their throat. And sometimes if you're not well prepared for the magnanimity of the service that we are doing, and that we are kind of not well prepared and not understanding the magnanimity of what we are getting into, we might choke ourselves in. But in the case of both Lord Brahma and Srila Prabhupada, as you see, because they were well prepared for the amount of time that they were trying to get into that mood of service, is they were neither anxious nor was they depressed. So if Supreme Lord is asking them not to be depressed, and not to be anxious. So what is Supreme Lord asking him to perform is actually feel empowered. And actually, it's interesting that Srila Prabhupada translates Gaha Tandrim as become dejected in the word-to-word translations, but then he translates that one as being neither depressed nor anxious in actually the verse translation. Um, as So yeah, as I was saying, was the feeling of empowerment is what the Supreme Personality of Godhead kind of was inspiring Lord Brahma to feel. Where and if we kind of go back and look into the purport, is Srila Prabhupada kind of very beautifully kind of navigates through this whole concept of empowerment in a beautiful way, and in as if we understand is as if we understand the case of empowerment happens because of the faith and on because of it's in a way caused by the faith on the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the instructions that he is giving us and the promise that Supreme Personality of Godhead is making in the case of both Lord Brahma and Srila Prabhupada himself. What are the promises that the Supreme Lord is kind of making to both Lord Brahma and Srila Prabhupada, and is it applicable to us? How do we feel? How do we like? There are so many services that each of us kind of get into, which could be. I'll just give me 1 minute. I'm sorry, there's some disturbance. So as we understand, is the promise is the famous promise that the Supreme Personality of Godhead says in the Bhagavad Gita is Name Bhaktiya Pradashyati, is the promise of the Lord saying that his devotees will never perish. And also in one of the previous verses, the Supreme Lord says, not the Supreme Lord, in this verse itself, the kind of words that the Supreme Lord is speaking in the second two verses. The first one, basically, the Lord is saying that Ma Veda Garbha Ga Tandrim, which Srila Prabhupada translates as don't be anxious, don't be depressed, and don't be anxious about the service that you're trying to perform. And then in the next two lines, the Supreme Lord is saying, Tan Maya Paditam hi agre yam yanmam prartayate bhavan. Prartayate, the one that you are praying for, Bhavan is already granted to you. And he said that Maya apaditam. The Supreme Lord is saying, by me it is already executed. What you have to do is just try to perform that service, and as you are trying to do that service, you'll feel empowered, and then I'll empower you with whatever is required in performing of your service. And as we see also in the case of Srila Prabhupada, is he was trying to perform the service in the best way that he could, and there were this multiple situations and all those things happening, which kind of might not something that Srila Prabhupada can think of, and then it's not that he is scheming for those exact things to happen, but because of the faith that they had on the instructions, in the case of Srila Prabhupada, in the instructions of his spiritual master, and in the case of Lord Brahma, because Lord Vishnu is directly his spiritual master, is also on the faith of the instruction of their spiritual masters, as they were trying to perform the best their service they could, based on the promises that the Supreme Lord is giving here, Name Bhaktya Pranashyati, and then saying that Maya Paditam is I will perform, and then you just have to kind of be in that. And also, as Srila Prabhupada is writing in the purport, is that he says, and before he was so interested, the Lord had already arranged for his victory. So that is something that it needs to happen. And then Next might come to the question is, what is the question that we need to ask? Is the question that needs to be asked is, can I do that service? Or is the question that needs to be asked is, can I be in that position where can I be trusted by my spiritual master for performing that service? And that is also that Srila Prabhupada wonderfully explains it in the verse, in the purport. He says that there's this beautiful line which says, fortunate is he who is so entrusted. He's saying that the fortune is not getting the glory is not getting the service accomplished, but the glory is just being interested in performing that devotion in that service. Because it, as we all understand that sometimes we are also told that it's not that if we are not there in that place. For example, in the case that if I see today, when Lakshmikant Prabhu asked me if there are any takers for today's Bhagavatam class, it was in a way my fortune that I was able to take the service of giving the Bhagavatam class. If it was not, it's not that if I don't give, then there is nothing. It's not that we'll not have this Bhagavatam class or anything. There's so many devotees. There's so many wonderful devotees amongst you also who can kind of take the class and then perform the service in a much better way. But the fortune is mine in this case, is of being interested for performing this service of giving the Bhagavatam class, because it's kind of helping me understand, as in the case of preparation and also all speaking, it's kind of for my own purification. So is also in any service that we will be performing. The fortune is just being interested with the faith and the trust of our own spiritual masters, or of the Guru Parampara, of being in that place where the Guru Parampara feels trust that yes, this is the person who can kind of take this service forward. So the fortune is just being in that position. So the question is never of can I do that service, because can I do that service? The answer is, as the Supreme Lord is saying, is always the yes. But the question is, can I earn the trust of my Guru to perform that devotional service or perform that specific service? And it's also interesting that when Jagadananda Prabhu was sharing the quote yesterday, I just took one specific point from that, is the quote that says that the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. Uh, as this quote says, all it needs is commitment. And the moment we are committed, so as we see in the example of both Lord Brahma and Srila Prabhupada, the moment they are committed, all sorts of things started to occur. And then which meetings and material assistance which no man could have dreamed would have come his way. We can kind of go much deeper into the examples of both Srila Prabhupada and Lord Brahma, but because for the lack of time, we will try to end it with just one point. Is not just in that case, we also see in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, Valmiki Muni, Vyasadeva, and so on, and Srila Prabhupada, is every time the Dhruva Maharaj every time in Bhagavatam, we see that once a devotee is committed for performing the devotional service, one of the major personalities who was always there to kind of guide him and navigate and make sure that all sorts of things were happening were Narada Muni. We see that in the case of Valmiki Muni, we see that in the case of Dhruva Maharaj, we see that in the case of Vyasadeva. And I'm sure if we think deeper, we'll also see that in our own lives, whenever there was some kind of commitment for performing certain kind of services that we thought is never possible, we kind of see that there are certain things that happen, certain life situations that kind of change. So all it needs from our side is the commitment. And once the commitment is there, then as Srila Prabhupada is kind of warning us, comes the mood of the service. It says, of course, the person entrusted with such a responsibility should always be aware of his incapability and must always look for the mercy of the Lord for the successful execution of his duty. And then Srila Prabhupada, in the last two lines, he says, anyone who takes pride in doing responsible work but does not give credit to the Supreme Lord is certainly falsely proud and cannot execute anything nicely. So as long as once we have the commitment and we are being honest to ourselves to perform the service in the best possible way that we can do, And when it happens, we actually understand that it's not just my own effort, because if it was our own effort and if it's our own capability, we would never be anxious in the beginning thinking that, oh, I cannot perform this service. And if we are being honest to ourselves and we look actually dig deeper into us and then look back what happened, we understand that it was not my own credit, that I cannot take any credit for it. And as Chaitanya Charan Prabhu wonderfully says, fear always looks downwards and the faith looks upwards. And as long as we have faith on the instruction of the spiritual master, committing ourselves to performing that service and being honest to the mood of performing that service in the mood of the servant of the servants, then wonders start to happen, as it happened in the case of Srila Prabhupada, as in the case of Lord Brahma. The wonders could mean that all of us sitting here and then discussing about these specific personalities and all of it. And sometimes it's not that commitment means just leaving aside everything, like Srila Prabhupada kind of letting go of his family. Sometimes, as Jagadananda Prabhu was also explaining yesterday, sometimes in our level, commitment is just taking care of our own kids, taking care of our own health, taking care of anything that needs to be there, or just any kind of level of service that we are doing. Our commitment is not just kind of letting go of everything or anything. Commitment is to the process of performing the devotional service. It may be, if I look at my side, my commitment is just kind of taking the best kind of care forward that I can give for my own family, for my twin boys, and then performing the devotional service, committing to the process, and then committing to the instruction of my own spiritual master in the best way that I can. And as long as we are doing that, there's actually a cliche word in the sports which goes on to say that commit to the process, and as long as you're committing yourself to the process and trust it, and the results will follow. And if we are in that position of committing to the process and trusting, and again following the mood, as Srila Prabhupada is saying, in the mood of the servant of the servants, then there are these wonderful wonders that start to manifest. And it's never late to pray to Srila Prabhupada on the even. It's always the best day to pray to Srila Prabhupada, but kind of carrying forward the mood of his disappearance. There's a lot of legacy that he has left for us, and I on this day I pray to Srila Prabhupada himself and Lord Brahma, so that they can empower us to commit ourselves to each other, kind of being there for each other and feel empowered in our services to Srila Prabhupada. I'm sorry, the kids kind of came in between. I think it was quite an early day for them. I hope it was not much of a disturbance. I did slightly deviate from my thought, but I'm sorry for that. I hope it was enriching for class. It was definitely an enriching class for me, and I hope it's an enriching class for all of you. If there are any questions or comments or corrections, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Wonderful class, Prabhuji. I have two comments.
Yes,
I like the conclusion very much. Have you accept that any service as our fortune, and how we carry it out. That is what makes it perfect. That how we accept that service as our opportunity and respond to it in that way. That's the best. And then I wish Prabhu, please post that about that commitment, that quote in our Bhagavatam speakers group, if possible.
Sure.
And then I had one more point. It is excellent that you could bring out a one-to-one parallel between Lord Brahma's steps in creation and Srila Prabhupada's, in establishing the ISKCON. That's amazing, actually, that you could think it that way. But I have one comment there.
Yes,
that is, Srila Prabhupada was able to invoke the mercy of Rupa and Jiva Goswamis and get their, permission from them, the blessings, that must have really taken off all the anxiety and depression he had probably. That is a very huge step in his journey, I feel. I mean, of course, during the Jaladuta, he had Krishna directly, talking to him and comforting him and giving him all encouragement, everything, and how he saw the ship was being pulled by all the incarnations, Krishna himself and all the incarnations. All that is amazing, amazing. Thank you very much, Prabhu. It was very wonderful class today. Hare Krishna. Always you give very good class. Thank you. Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
I mean, it's as I said, it's. I always say that it's been a big fortune for me from the time we moved to Nepal, just being in the Sangha of devotees, just relishing Bhagavatam every day and just sharing something. So it's my fortune.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Yeah.
Yes,
Prabhuji, Sandhya Mataji covered everything in very detail. There's not much to say, but you bring your own unique perspective, and ever since you started joining and giving these talks, it's been much more enriching to us. Different viewpoints and bringing all your learnings and wisdom. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Very good points, Prabhu, in the class. Several things to ponder about. Sandhya Mataji already covered most of them. I also like the quote from Chaitanya Charandas. Is that Chaitanya Charandas?
Yes.
Fear
Yes,
always
yes.
looks downwards and faith looks upwards. It's a beautiful quote. Thank you for the class, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I think Lakshmikant Prabhu had to go for a meeting. If there are no questions, then we can end here. I'm sorry I took slightly more time. Vancha kalpatarabhyascha kripa sindhubhyeva cha patitanam bhavnebhyo vaishnavebhyo. Shri Prabhupada.